Hello everyone, JackalGoldKick here, along with Feat.8Tey the Skeleton Lord, and today we're going to tell you why we love Dead Rising 1 and what we want to see in Dead Rising 4. So, Dead Rising 1 is a classic. It is definitely my favorite Dead Rising in the series. Just to touch on the Dead Rising series real quick, Dead Rising 1 and 2 are the best in the series. Dead Rising 2 I love a lot. I like Dead Rising 1 a little bit more, but 2 comes close. 2's great. Case West and Case Zero are good, but they're too short, and they honestly should have been longer, you know. Well, maybe not Case Zero, but still, those games seemed a little bit too short for the prices they were. Dead Rising 2, off the record, I'm not going to count as a sequel or a classic because it's more of a remix, more of a Dead Rising 2 remix, Frank West edition. That's what it was. It was basically Dead Rising 2, but as Frank West. I like the game, but the story is nowhere near as good as Dead Rising 2, the original version, the original edition. Dead Rising 3, I'm going to say this. Dead Rising 3 has great gameplay, great graphics, great combo weapons, great location, great clothes, great vehicles. Everything in Dead Rising 3 is pretty much solid except for the story and characters. That's about it. So if you want to find out more about why I don't like the story and characters, if you want to find out why I thought Dead Rising 3 was a disappointment, you can go check out my Dead Rising 3 is a disappointment video, which is linked below. I may or may not make a remake of that video, but go check it out if you want to see me touch on that more. So, yeah. Dead Rising 3 didn't have good characters or story. I didn't think it did. It was awful. But anyways, let's get to this Dead Rising 1 talk. Then we'll get to the Dead Rising 4 talk. Dead Rising 1 is a great game. I'm just going to touch on how I first found out about it. I don't remember much of the process through me playing Dead Rising 1 and all this, but I'll just try to go through it as quick as I can. I remember that I was Dead Rising 1. I didn't know this game existed. Parents got it for me. I don't remember how old I was. Do not remember the year, but it was somewhat around when 360 was out, and the Xbox One and PS4 didn't even exist. So that's somewhere around that time frame where there was no Xbox One or PS4 when I got Dead Rising 1. I didn't know what to expect from this game. I didn't know about it. None of that. And plus, I didn't have internet, and I wasn't exposed to the internet yet, so that's probably one of the main reasons why I didn't know about Dead Rising 1, unless I went to GameStop and looked. But yeah, when I first got the game, I hated it. I think the main reason I hated it was simply because I sucked at it. Because when I first played it, it was kind of scary. I was like, ooh, is there going to be zombies in the safe house? Like, I didn't know what to expect from this game. It was like a cold turkey. I didn't know anything about this game, and I hated it at first because I sucked at it, and I found it repetitive. Because I remember that, I still remember this. I went into the first plaza. I think it's called Paradise Plaza. I went through the door, had a baseball bat, went after a zombie with a Willamette jacket, and he ate me. He bit me to shit. I died, alright? And I couldn't do anything because I didn't know how to escape from him. It showed how to I think it showed me how to get him off me, but I didn't know how to. I really sucked at the game back then, really bad. So I remember playing it from time to time, and then I didn't really play it anymore. The game kind of used to scare me a little bit when I was younger, especially the intro music. Don't know why, but it used to kind of freak me out when I was younger. But I remember getting Dead Rising 1 again. I remember there was a few times I thought about getting it, but I remember the main time when I actually got it again and played it. I also got Batman as some other game, but after I played Dead Rising 1 again, I don't remember when that year was, but it was definitely I think a few years later. Can't remember. I wish I could remember the time frames and I would tell you, but that's not the case. But yeah, when I got Dead Rising 1 again, I loved it. It was great. Great story. Loved beating it. The game is just amazing, alright? I'm going to go through and explain why I like it. I'm not going to go in depth like crazy, like this is some kind of book or some science experiment. No, and this isn't a review. I'm just going to touch on a few things. I'm not going to go crazy in depth, or this video will be like 2 to 3 hours long. So, let's touch on some of the bosses. Some of my favorite bosses in Dead Rising 1 go from Cliff to Brock to Steven to Larry. I'll touch on some of their stories. Cliff has a great story. I can relate to Cliff. Not in a way that it's happened to me, but basically, Cliff, I can understand his character. Cliff goes crazy because he lost his granddaughter. And I can definitely feel for him. If I lost my granddaughter or something like that in a zombie apocalypse, I would go crazy like him too. And, what I like about the Cliff character as well is in the intro of Dead Rising 1, it actually shows this family. It shows this daughter and mother in a car, and something happens to them. They get killed by zombies, and the little girl in that car was actually Cliff's granddaughter. So I thought that was a great tie-in. It was great that they tied that in with Cliff, and the reason that girl in the beginning was related to Cliff is because after you beat Cliff, he slides some wallet to you with a key, and you see a picture, and you can see the little girl on there, and that's awesome. I also like Larry. Larry's a very cool boss. He was kind of easy, but he was an interesting boss. He basically, spoiler alert, this is about Dead Rising 1. If you haven't beaten it and you don't want to know anything, skip off this video. So, Larry basically drags, he takes Carlito. I remember when you disarm the bombs under the tunnels, Carlito and Brad have a little fight. Carlito kicks Brad out of the door. Brad gets eaten by zombies, which sucks because Brad's a good character. But later on, Carlito's in this room, and then you get a call from Jesse. You look at the monitors, and Carlito is being dragged by this fat motherfucker, and it looks brutal. And you go check out the situation, and this big fat, I think he's Chinese, this big fat dude named Larry, who's a butcher, has Carlito up on this like meat hook or something like that, and he's like talking about he's talking about how he wants to serve his customers good meat, all that stuff, and Frank tries to talk to him, all this stuff, and Frank has to kill him because, he wants to keep Carlito for fresh meat. He's a sick fuck. So, the fight with Larry was cool. Larry was a pretty cool boss, interesting boss. And somebody said this in video comments, and it is true. Larry is the friendliest boss in this game. He's the friendliest boss in this game. Yes, he dragged a guy against his will, but when you met him, he didn't even try to kill you. You could literally stand there and he wouldn't kill you. He doesn't even attack you unless you go towards him and mess with him or something. So, he is the friendliest boss in the game. But that guy in the comments, I forgot what video it was, but he made sense with that. So, Larry was a good boss. Brock was a pretty cool boss as well. He was basically in overtime mode. You had to fight Brock with your bare hands, no food, no weapons. It was a bitch. And you had zombies all over the place, but you felt like a badass when you beat Brock. Brock was pretty cool army boss at the end overtime mode. Another cool boss is, what's his name? Paul. Paul's pretty interesting. He's not really a crazy psychopath, but Paul is interesting. He's basically like a guy who's, I guess, nervous or something about what he looks like or something like that. Can't even find the right words, but he has Molotovs, and he is a little cocksucker with those fucking Molotovs because he runs away from you and you gotta chase him, and unless you have a gun or a Mega Man blaster, you're gonna have a hard time trying to take him down. But after you defeat him, you get the option to either let him die because he actually gets on fire, and if you put the fire out, he joins you. So I think that was pretty cool. And then later on in the game, he actually gives you Molotov. So Paul is kind of a psychopath. Another awesome psychopath is Kent. Kent is a great boss, a great rival to Frank West. He's really cool. I like how he tries to be better than Frank West. I like how he has this rival against Frank. I like how he wants to try to be better. And there's two ways to fighting Kent. One way is fighting him with melee weapons. The second way is where he ties you up around this water thing and you gotta fight him in your underwear. Pretty crazy. Kent's a great boss. The convicts are pretty cool. Not really much backstory to them. Even though they're a bitch to fight, they are pretty cool. Sean, that's his name. He's the leader of the cult members. That's a cool boss as well. And the scary thing about him is he's an old man. He's in his 60s. He's able to jump higher than me, and that's scary, He's in his damn 60s, and he's able to jump like fucking, just like he's a Fantastic Four member. Shit is crazy. Sean's a cool boss. I love the cult members. The cult members are fantastic in this game. They give Dead Rising 1 a creepy element, and that's another thing I like about Dead Rising 1. It has a lot of creepiness, eeriness to it. Like the whole just being in the mall when the power goes out and it's dark. it's just great. The game has a lot of, you know, creepy moments to it, but the cult members, they definitely add creepiness to it, because while you're going out in this mall on certain times, the cult members could be out there, and if they get a hold of you, they kidnap you, you wake up in your underwear, and you have none of your weapons, and if worse comes to worse, depending on how you played the game, when you escape from them, you're stuck in the motherfucking leisure park, and the convicts are out there. So not only did you have to deal with them cult members that captured you, you now have to deal with these convicts. So shit is all fucked. But yeah, overall, I'm not going to touch on every single boss, but every boss in this game was pretty cool, like Joe, Cliff, you know, Cletus. I didn't want to touch on every boss because there's certain bosses like that don't have a lot of story or depth to them, but overall they have good bosses. Adam's a classic as well. The game also has great weapons like a laser sword, a chainsaw, a Mega Man blaster, swords, battle axes, chairs, shotgun, snipers. It has great weapons to use on zombies. It's got great clothes, great classes. You got great moments in the story, like when you and Brad go under the tunnels and you disarm the bombs. It's pretty cool. It's pretty tense as well. Or the time where you and Brad go and fight Carlito multiple times, or you got to save Dr. Barnaby, or you got to go get medicine for Brad when he got shot, and you have to fight that asshole Steven. Steven's a good boss as well. He's very psychotic and crazy about his shop, and he doesn't want nobody robbing it, so he attacks you because he thinks you're trying to rob the store. Steven is a crazy fuck. So that was pretty cool. Great moment in the story. I also like how near the end of the story, it's just you and Isabella, Frank West and Isabella, and they're going to try to find a way out of the mall, but they have to get past the military or the special ops forces. I really love how you go down in that watchtower, the clock tower, and there's just zombies everywhere down there. They're just everywhere. It is insane. So, and then another good moment in the Dead Rising story is, of course, the beginning where we have the stupid old lady screaming for a dog, and somehow, I don't know how this even makes sense. I know video games aren't supposed to be realistic, but come on here. This old lady overpowers over 1 to 3 full-grown men. Somehow, this old lady gets past 3 to 4 grown men and opens the door to zombies. How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up? I don't know. But hey, you need the zombies to get in the mall somehow and start the game up. But overall, Dead Rising 1 is a fantastic game. It's classic. It's awesome. It has great characters, great story, great bosses, great weapons, great atmosphere, great location, and a great main character as well. Frank West is awesome. He even has he has a good line in this game where he basically says, "I covered wars," you know. And that kind of reminds me of Resident Evil, because if you played Resident Evil, it has a line called Jill Sandwich, and it kind of keeps that whole cheesy line in there. So I'm glad Frank West has a line to be remembered by. And, you know, I'm glad Capcom added that in, because you want to be remembered by. Like, I'm glad they added that in for Frank West. The whole, you know, I covered wars, you know. And that was just great, you know, because Frank West is a badass character. He just comes down in this mall, doesn't know there's zombies, solves this, and just solves it and all that shit. And he's just a great character, so they definitely nailed it for picking a good character. Now, I'm going to touch on Dead Rising 4. So Dead Rising 4, what I want to see in it is 2 things, alright? Either have Dead Rising 4 have Frank West in it. I don't know what location, what story, whatever. Maybe you could pick New York as a city or something. Just pick something as a location. I don't know what they could do with Dead Rising 4 to have Frank West in there, but Dead Rising 4 either needs to have Frank West, give me his model from Dead Rising 3 DLC, Super Hyper Edition, that arcade DLC from Dead Rising 3. Give that Frank West look, because that's the best look right now in my opinion. It's not too fat, too old, too washed up, and make sure you give him his camera, because Frank West didn't have his camera in the DLC, which is stupid. And you might be like, well, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal, because the camera is iconic for Frank West. It's sort of like the Punisher or Superman. If you take away Superman's cape through the whole movie, or you take away the Punisher's skull, you're taking away something iconic to the character, and that's a huge issue. I wouldn't care if you shaved Frank West's head or gave him a beard. If you take away something iconic, there's a huge issue there. But anyway, give him the model from the Dead Rising 3 DLC, give him the camera, and put him in Dead Rising 4, and either have him pair up with Isabella or Chuck Green. I really want a full-fledged game that is long as Dead Rising 2 or 1, and we have Frank West and Chuck Green. So the first choice I want for Dead Rising 4 is Frank West and Chuck Green co-op, a full game just about them. I don't want no Nick Ramos. I don't want this guy named Bruce. I don't want no new character. I want Frank West and Chuck. I want Frank West or Chuck Green, or I want both in Dead Rising 4, and I want to play as them. That is what I want. Now, the other thing I want, if they can't do that, or if they're not deciding to do that, the other possibility that I would love to see in Dead Rising 4, and I've discussed this in a Dead Rising prequel video, which I'll link that below as well. It's Dead Rising Santa Cabeza prequel video, something like that. Dead Rising 4, what they could also do is a prequel, and this would be great. Dead Rising hasn't had a prequel yet, might as well do it. And before I go on, Case Zero doesn't count as a prequel because it came out before Dead Rising 2. I met some people who thought it was a prequel. No, it's Dead Rising Case Zero came out before Dead Rising 2, just to clarify that. So, just to clarify that and get that out of the way. So, Dead Rising 4, it would be cool if they did prequel, because Dead Rising hasn't had a prequel yet. And what they could do with Dead Rising 4 as a prequel is have us play as Carlito Keyes and Isabella Keyes and find out what exactly happened before Willamette Mall. What happened in Santa Cabeza? Santa Cabeza is mentioned in Dead Rising 1 by Dr. Barnaby and others, and we would like to know. So if they could make a prequel in Dead Rising 4 that talks about, or you play as Carlito and Isabella, and you find out what exactly happened in Santa Cabeza. You get to play as Carlito and Isabella, fight zombies, find out what happened that led all the way to the Willamette stuff, why Carlito what caused Carlito to push him to the limit of getting revenge and all this stuff. I want to know these answers. I really would like to know these answers. So either you get Frank West and Chuck Green back in some badass game, or you give me a prequel with Isabella and Carlito as the two main characters you play as, including co-op for those two, and it's a prequel in Santa Cabeza before Willamette Mall. So I would really like to see that. I've already touched on it in my other video, which I'll link below, but yeah, I want Carlito and Isabella as the main characters in the prequel. I know I mentioned in the other video that I would like to see, if they can't do them two characters, maybe they could do a soldier, which that wouldn't be bad, but honestly, just get Carlito and Isabella in the prequel, in the Santa Cabeza shit. Just get them two, because it would make sense, and it would tie up a loose end, to be honest, because that's a loose end that hasn't been tied yet. Of course, there's maybe a few other things that people may consider loose ends in Dead Rising, but the main loose end in Dead Rising that hasn't been tied is definitely the Santa Cabeza backstory and all that stuff. So overall, that's what I thought about Dead Rising 1. Like I said, like I touched on, Dead Rising 1 has great characters, great story, great location, great weapons, great clothes, thousands of zombies to slash and beat the shit out of zombies, have fun. The first zombie game to break the barrier down to be one of the first zombie games to be, run around, do what the fuck you want, even though there's a time limit. Like I said, Dead Rising 1, classic. It's got great scary moments, great characters, great story, great location, all that stuff. It's got everything solid with that. And for Dead Rising 4, as I touched on, either give us Frank and Chuck for Dead Rising 4 in a full-fledged game. Maybe Katie gets kidnapped, something. Do something with Frank and Chuck. You have to bring Frank back one more time, alright? If you want to get rid of him, fine. But you have to bring Frank back one more time. But I would prefer if you keep Frank in the series because he's the OG original character. Or just have Chuck in the game. Either way, I'll be happy. Or just have Dead Rising 4 be about Isabella and Carlito in the Santa Cabeza prequel. So, that's all I have to say. Peace.
Thank you for having me on. My name is 8Tey the Skeleton Lord, or you can look me up on YouTube as 8Tey. I'm honored to be on this collab, so like JackalGoldKick said, we will be talking about what we liked in Dead Rising 1 and what we want for Dead Rising 4. Now, going on to number 1 on the list, what I liked or loved about Dead Rising 1 was the zombies. The models were amazing. Like, you could compare them to actual people, because some of them were modeled after actual survivors in the game. Let's see if we can find one really quick. This guy looks really good for right now. Oh, not you. Get off me. She looks really good still. Get off. Don't you bite me. Here's one. I think this is one anyway. Yeah, well, him. You know, you can compare them to normal people. I love these models so much that I literally wanted them to be in the other Dead Rising games, and when I found out they weren't, I was like, man, I miss the old zombies. Like, the only reason I was like, it was just so disappointing when I found out they weren't in the other games. I was like, no, the old models. Well, I can see why. They could have just polished them up more. They were in a different state, so that explains it, but you know. Another thing I liked was the story. They kind of didn't go with the same thing in Dead Rising 2, which was weird, because it's the same series. Dead Rising 3 was you build a plane, you're done. There you go. I want them to go back to the Santa Cabeza, Willamette, Colorado story of Dead Rising. You know, because that goes back to the beginning and it tells you what you need to know. Like, you know, who made the zombies. You know, all that stuff. Which was kind of disappointing how they didn't stick with that, you know. Yeah, they need something like that for part 4. Just gonna say this, but Dead Rising 1 is my favorite game in the entire world. It was the first video game I ever played, and personally I kinda liked Frank West and the camera feature more than the combo weapons. I really didn't care about the combo weapons. It's not bad that they were put in, I just didn't care. I kinda liked Frank West and the camera back. Kinda glad when they did that in Off the Record, but you could tell that those zombies were not made for camera. They really weren't. Like, the blood was pixelated really, really badly. I mean, at least you can look at this guy, and he's not pixels. Or square. Like, their body was much more square in the second game. Like, the graphics went down. I don't know why. Also, Dead Rising 1 had more difficulty than the other ones. I just figured, I don't know why. Like, Dead Rising 3, I beat it without dying once. The first time I played it. Dead Rising 1, you'll die like once or twice, and if you're really good, you won't, but you know, it's still difficult. Like, you know, you're probably not going to save all the survivors in one go, or, you know, something like that. But, Dead Rising 3, it was just, they added a weapons locker for some reason. You know, you pick up one thing, here, let's go to the weapons locker. And you can just keep getting it over and over again, you know, there's no, like, lack, whatever. Just disappointing. Like, even the zombies were different, man. Like, the walks were the parasite was different, the zombies were different. They added new zombies, which is crazy. Oh yeah, back to what, you know, we want for, well, we didn't even get into that, but what I want personally for Dead Rising 4, well, I'd like either a 10th anniversary Dead Rising 1 remake, you know, for the Xbox One, or PC, so we could do some actual cool stuff with it, instead of just Steepo having to do all the mods himself. I'd like to actually help out with that. Steepo, you are awesome, so are you, Jackal. I want a 10th anniversary Dead Rising, because we need it. We need it. It's been almost 10 years. When it becomes the 10-year mark, we need the anniversary released, or part 4 would work as well. Hopefully, it will be Santa Cabeza's story, telling about Carlito and Isabella's backstory, you know, like, what, happened, you know, tell the whole thing, because, you know, they told it in this, but we didn't see any of it, and I'd personally like to play as Carlito or Isabella, or someone else in the village, or even the soldiers would be cool, you know, or a zombie maybe, you know, something, and we need, like, these original zombie walks and whatever, but I want to play that version. I want to play that game if it ever it's released. You know, Santa Cabeza. Another cool thing for Dead Rising 4 would be how Isabella Keys and Frank West escaped Willamette, Colorado. This place where I am right now, because in a certain part of the game, this is a spoiler, you might want to skip this if you don't know, but you have to fight Brock on the tank. He's the Special Forces commander. Well, the game ends after you fight Brock, and, you know, I want to see what happened. I want to see what happened. You know, how they got out. A long few days of them saving people and getting out of the town. You know, maybe them, you know, because the military kind of kidnapped your friends. You know, I want to see what happened. Because, you know, they just go back, hey, it's Dead Rising 2 now. You know, and everybody think that's okay to just abandon the first game. It's not. The first game was best. And just, well, you know, I want to see what happened on all of those stories. But, here's a little thing. If they remake the game, I want the same models. Just a tiny bit polished up, because they already look, you know, presentable enough for me. They move well. They can improve some certain things, like the rendering, but, you know, otherwise, I want them to leave it alone a little bit. Maybe move it to the Xbox One. Just, I voted for that, to be moved to the Xbox One, but, you know, whatever. Thank you for having me on, Jackal. It's 8Tey the Skeleton Lord, or 8Tey if you want to look me up. I do a lot of Dead Rising 1 stuff. Peace out, guys.